Oregon company withdraws interstate marijuana trade lawsuit, saying big things are coming very soon. Plaintiffs in a federal court case centered on interstate marijuana trade have voluntarily withdrawn their lawsuit against the state of Oregon, providing no public explanation for the move beyond saying that, quote, big things are coming on this front very soon, unquote. Jefferson Packing House, a state-licensed cannabis wholesaler based in Medford, filed suit against the Oregon Governor Kate Brown and others in November 2022, challenging a state law that bans exporting marijuana across state lines. While cross-border cannabis commerce is also illegal under federal law, the company said at the time that its goal was to invite Oregon officials to join them in pursuing reform. Pro tip, inviting people typically doesn't include suing them. We recognize that marijuana is still illegal under federal law and that this lawsuit will not change that fact, the company said in a letter to state officials when the suit was filed. However, we believe that the state of Oregon should be fully aligned with supporting its local marijuana industry, and therefore that Oregon law should no longer prohibit the export of marijuana to other states. In a one-sentence notice filed with the court this week, however, Jefferson Packing House withdrew its suit. Plaintiff Jefferson Packing House, LLC, hereby provides notice of its voluntary dismissal of the above-captioned matter without prejudice, wrote Andrew DeWeese, a Portland attorney who represents the company. In response to questions from Marijuana Moment, DeWeese sent the following statement. Said the company remains committed to leading the way in a push towards a true national cannabis market. State prohibition on interstate commerce and cannabis remains unconstitutional, he said. Today's procedural move does not change any of that. Big changes are coming on this front very soon. DeWeese did not immediately respond to a follow-up email. Lawyers for the state have previously asked the court to dismiss the case, asserting that Jefferson lacks standing. In a January motion, they wrote that because federal law also prohibits the export of cannabis products, the company's alleged injuries are not likely to be addressed by the relief that it is seeking. Further, they argue the Dormant Commerce Clause does not apply as the lawsuit describes it. That doctrine prohibits states from treating interstate and intrastate commerce differently, the state's filing says. Here, however, there is no interstate commerce to treat differently. A reply last March from Jefferson, however, contended that the Federal Controlled Substance Act did not eliminate commerce in marijuana any more than a criminal statute eliminated the act or conduct it forbids. It's not clear what might have led the company to drop its legal challenge. The move, first reported by Law 360, may signal that the company expects a future development that would allow interstate commerce, though it also is possible the company is concerned that the unfavorable ruling would cause more harm than good. Legal changes at the state level, for example, undoing the prohibition on interstate trade, could also render the case irrelevant. Federal rescheduling of marijuana would conceivably allow some cross-border cannabis trade, at least of medications approved by the Food and Drug Administration, but it's unlikely that a Schedule II designation, Schedule III designation in itself would allow state legal cannabis businesses to broadly engage in interstate commerce. Already, Oregon has a law on its books, which Brown signed into law in 2019, that would permit the state to export and import cannabis across state lines, but only if the federal government makes it legal, or if the Justice Department implements an administrative policy allowing for such commerce. The Justice Department has not signaled that such a policy change is forthcoming. All three West Coast states that have interstate commerce laws on the books, in fact, with Washington adopting a similar law to Oregon's in May of last year, and California has also enacted a cross-border cannabis law, but under that policy, the state attorney general could also trigger the implementation regardless of federal considerations. In January of last year, state regulators requested that Attorney General Rob Bonta prepare that guidance. Bonta's office, however, said last month that launching interstate cannabis commerce could put California at significant risk to federal action. You think? In 2022, the federal appellate court ruled that Maine's law prohibiting non-residents from owning medical marijuana businesses in the state violated the Commerce Clause of the U.S. Constitution. Some experts believe that the same rationale in validating the residency restrictions comes into play with state-level bans on marijuana imports and exports. Disallowing import and export of medical cannabis between consenting states could be construed as similarly protectionistic and unconstitutional, the thinking goes. Meanwhile, in Oregon, both Republicans and Democrats have expressed interest in rolling back certain provisions of Measure 110, the state's historic voter-approved law that decriminalized possession of all drugs. Though Oregon's Secretary of State said last year that the law has improved treatment, critics contend the police need to be able to make arrests and charge drug users in order to encourage treatment. All right, so let me kick this off for y'all real quick, okay? We have talked on this show about lawsuits where I believe that the value of the lawsuit is the PR play. And so here we have an Oregon cannabis business suing the state that already passed a law in 2019 indicating its willingness to participate with interstate commerce and justifying the lawsuit as an invitation, okay? Let's be really clear about words. When I get an invitation, it's usually to somebody's wedding. When I get an invitation, I get a place to go. I get to eat some finger foods. Maybe I even get to dress up. Suing somebody is not an invitation. So that kind of double speak doesn't go over well with me. And then not having standing and trying to sue Oregon over a federal issue, all I can say is probably the reason why they dropped this lawsuit is because they ran out of public relations resources that was allowing them to get their 15 minutes of fame and be a larger part of a larger and broader conversation around federal illegality. However, it is my personal opinion that when we complain about the wasted resources with overregulation and burdensome taxation, that this Oregon cannabis business wasted a bunch of taxpayers' time and money by suing Oregon. This is Yarrow Kubrin, Monday morning, December 29th, High at 9 News. I'd like to know what you guys think.
Man, I mean, I smell a trade-off. I smell a trade-off somewhere, Yarrow. I feel like this is part of a bigger story, and this is just the first step of that.
This is all hype and BS because they said, oh, big things are coming soon. You don't know if big things are coming soon. You're not the federal government. You're not in any of those regulatory agencies. Shut your pie hole. Go back to barbecuing on a Sunday on your Traeger and know that you just wasted a bunch of taxpayer resources by suing a state that already has a relatively friendly policy.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. He realized he stepped in. I'm willing to bet this is part of a broader settlement for him because he probably wants something done there locally, and in order for him to get that done, he's going to need to drop this lawsuit. That's what I think. I think there's something else going on that this article is not touching on.
I mean, in the Pacific Northwest,
what do you think, Luke?
In the Pacific Northwest, it rains too much. They get really depressed up there. It's gloomy. It's like 9 months out of the year. You know, most of my friends that are in Washington, Oregon, BC area, like, they're a little throwed. I love them. They're my guys. I'll ride for them to the end. But listen, it does something to you up there when you live in that like gloomy weather, and it just, man, like, you know. But hey, it's hard to talk about these situations, right? Because we see just the repeat of so many things happen again and again. But I think you hit it on the head, Yarrow. I think you hit this square on the head in that this looked to me like a PR move. And I don't know if they have a longer game that they're playing with this or what it is, but a lot of times you'll see attorneys and people will file these suits, and it's strictly, they know they have no bearing on them, that it's just to hold up into the media and say, this is what's going on. It's a waste of money. California is notorious for it. We clog the system with all these dumb lawsuits of, but it is what it is. It's the nature of the beast that we've created in this bargaining justice system that we call. And now you have people that want to exploit it and sue everybody for everything. And this is a chicken coming home to roost.
Mm-hmm.